Om Namo Venkateshaya to all of you. Today we are going to decode Saturn placement of your birth chart, and we will be going house-wise, right from the first house till the 12th house in a lot of detail. Saturn is one of those planets which is highly misunderstood, highly fear-mongered across the internet, and even misunderstood in form of the readings that you would see. And you will also see that a lot of people would not even acknowledge the blessings they have in their real life through Saturn. Saturn is one of those few planets that can actually make or break a lot of things in your birth chart. It holds a lot of power in your birth chart, given that apart from its own placement, it has the power to aspect three different houses within your entire birth chart that would be revolving around different themes of your life. It would be creating different challenges within your life, and it will also reward you according to those challenges. A very overrated term, which is as always associated with Saturn, is the fact that it always supports delays over denial. But the reality is, Saturn is like a protector. It does not really care whether you actually enjoy the pressure it is trying to give you. It does not really care whether you misunderstand it or not. It does not really care whether you are undergoing an extremely hard phase in your life. Its fundamental intrinsic nature is to create obstacles and challenges within your life and then waits to see your reaction to all of these challenges. It is one of those planets which has the power to hold your karma as well as the rewards associated with your karma. And that is why Saturn owns the 10th and the 11th natural signification zodiac signs or rashis, as we like to say it, which is Capricorn and Aquarius, that comes continuously. Saturn is also one of those planets which is slowest in terms of transiting in a different zodiac sign from where it is placed, because it will take approximately 2.5 years to actually even move from one sign to another in your birth chart. Saturn always creates challenges in your life and waits for you to react to them in the correct fashion so that you can convert these challenges into opportunities. And you definitely will learn one very important thing with Saturn, which is acceptance. It is not about delay or denial at all. It is about acceptance. It is about being protected at the cost of misunderstanding something which you are always desiring for, and Saturn will steal it away from you, because it might not be the most optimal path which you might be navigating towards. And that is what Saturn does. So whenever you are trying to read Saturn in your birth chart, always remember that the house in which this Saturn is placed will be extremely good for you, irrespective of the challenges it is going to bring in the themes of your life. Saturn, being the justice god, will never do injustice to the house where it is being placed, but it will definitely give you a lot of troubles in the way you perceive it. And the houses where it will be aspecting, which is the 3rd house, the 7th house, and the 10th house away from its own placement, are the places where you will actually see challenges manifesting in form of circumstances in your life, and it is your duty to overcome them. Saturn has this quintessential vibe to it that it will never let you settle down to be a silver. It will always pressurize you to the extent that you will break down in the hope that you eventually become a diamond. But after you have become a diamond, it is very much possible that you have no longer the desire to become a diamond itself. So you are in hold of your abundance in your life, but still living in denial about it. That is how powerful Saturn tries to create a legacy in your life, and therefore it will only give you those rewards at a much later stage. Many a times you would feel that this delay is actually equivalent to a denial. But what you neglect over here strongly is the fact that you were protected. Protected in the ways that you yourself couldn't contemplate. And sometimes it takes you multiple years to even realize what Saturn exactly did to protect you. And then when you look back at your life, let's say back 5 years since you have came forward in your life in the future, you would realize that no, some things manifested for you, some disappointments that came your way have only made you stronger. And that's what the intention was. Because today, whatever you define yourself to be is what Saturn really shaped out of you. If you have planets in your chart with a lot of Saturn nakshatras associated with it, then you will also see a lot of money making opportunities that comes and paves way in your life. Always remember, Saturn also does give rewards because it is the natural significator of Aquarius, which is the sign for rewards. And therefore, you will also see this, that the rewards and success which is given by Saturn is much more immense compared to what Sun can give you, compared to what Jupiter can bless you with, compared to what a courageous Mars can grant you. Saturn will make sure that you literally provide a legacy related to that house only if you are able to succumb to all of these obstacles, challenges, and plethora of circumstances that creates in your life on a daily basis in terms of your experiences and the way you react to it in the correct way. Many a times you would see that the person has not been able to reach the pinnacle potential which Saturn really promises in their birth chart. But nevertheless, it is one of the most misunderstood protectors. And you will also relate to this in the form of mythological or the historical stories that are associated with Saturn in any culture. Alright, let's now talk about what happens when Saturn comes to the second house of the birth chart. Saturn comes into a very karmic placement when it is in the second house of the birth chart, especially given the materialistic pursuits of the person who is having this placement. They will constantly see that they have struggled throughout their life to achieve a financial stability, and here and there some other expense keeps troubling them, which causes them to become financially unstable. They earn a lot by speculation tendencies, but honestly, they do not believe in short term quick gains. Rather, this person is here to play a long innings altogether and actually witnesses quite a beautiful financial abundance. But unfortunately or fortunately, they have completely detached themselves from their material achievements of life in terms of correlating that to their satisfaction. The biggest challenge which this second house Saturn person will face is from their fourth house, where the third aspect of this Saturn lies. The person will constantly question in the initial stages of their life whether they are satisfied doing what they actually intend to do, whether they are satisfied from their job, whether they are satisfied with the assets they are possessing, whether they are satisfied from their family, whether they are being the provider for their family and doing a justice in being the provider for the resources and the desire fulfillments that needs to happen over here. On top of that, when Saturn is in the second house, the seventh aspect goes to the eighth house. So you will see that such a person in initial childhood days itself till their early adulthood does not get the proper slice of pizza which they deserve altogether. These are the set of people who have studied with a lot of rigor but unfortunately couldn't make it to all those big and fancy colleges, unfortunately due to a lack of resources, and many a times due to a lack of tinge of luck as well, which circumstantially prevented them altogether from achieving it. Let's say that even if they get one of those wonderful ranks after clearing some competitive exams, some circumstantial reason here and there, they could not join that top college, or let's say that they never had the resources in the first place to be able to get that level of a good rank. So they started from very scratch and bare minimum. But as they were extremely hardworking, they climbed over and over and over and took a leap of faith to actually be able to become capable enough to work with a set of people who have literally came from tier 1 colleges or who are very qualified enough. And this Saturn in the second house person feels very out of place when they actually go into such a work environment, and that is very natural for them to actually happen as well. And that is what the 10th aspect of the Saturn in the second house is all about when it goes to the 11th house, which are your colleagues you meet in your work environment who are extremely smarter compared to you, and you actually catch up to them and then even surpass them in a very beautiful way. When Saturn comes to the second house, such a person will also have a very less way of expression compared to others. They will not be so talkative. They will be introverted by nature, or their intrinsic nature is to be a person with very few words. But when they get up to speak, this person will surprise the entire room. This person who is having Saturn in the second house will be that dark horse who is sitting quietly, silently spectating the entire room with a very keen eye of observation, processing all the arguments and all the perspectives that are being kept across the entire room. And then they get up and they come up with a very few set of compelling arguments, and they literally made the entire room silent with their rationale and reasoning which they have presented, because they are extremely data driven and they do not like to speak without having a solid backing. This is also characterized by the fact that in their childhood, such a person used to be having some sort of a stage fright or nervous in terms of expressing their true thoughts honestly in front of other people. When Saturn comes in the second house, such a person bears a higher moral burden all the time in fulfilling responsibilities of their family, and he or she will constantly be used or misused by their father's side of family. And they would be in a delusional love with their father's side initially, that they would come and acknowledge all the sacrifices that you did for them, but unfortunately that era is way past, and you will probably never even get that silent acknowledgement from them until and unless you start realizing that your satisfaction does not depend on their validation, rather it depends on your own peace and soul happiness altogether. And that is the biggest challenge you overcome with a leap of faith in life. That is your fourth house. You learn what it means to be truly satisfied. You learn what does materialistic achievement means in reality. You learn that this is not only about money. You learn that I have the person who has fulfilled their due responsibilities, and I have been the provider to so many set of people who probably never asked for my help, and they will never acknowledge it also. You are here to make a legacy out of yourself. When Saturn comes to the second house, sometimes such a person ends up making a lot of properties or assets, but unfortunately or fortunately, they are not able to enjoy the fruits of their own labor. Rather, the future generations or their immediate family are the ones who become the bhog karta, or the ones who become the eventual person who enjoys all of these pleasures. Because by the time this is manifested, such a person has already risen above all these pleasures altogether. He or she has came closer to understanding what materialistic fulfillment truly means in life and has decoded it. Saturn in the second house teaches you patience, and especially it teaches you patience in the way that you will see the world around you going ahead of you, and you feel inferior compared to them. Then you use that as a reinforcement to accelerate your vehicle of life as well. So that is how things truly transform for you. You are not here for victory, you are here for survival. And to the extent that whenever something good happens to you, you start questioning, did this happen actually to me? Was this supposed to happen to me? And instead of celebrating or acknowledging that achievement, you start contemplating the next, what could go wrong possibly. And that is why a lot of people who are having Saturn in second house, especially if it is being driven by an earth sign, let's say Taurus or let's say even Virgo, such a person will be extremely capable in managing other people's finances, no matter what their own financial or economical status would be. Such a person might go into the banking industry, might go into the finance industry. They are also closely related to fintech sometimes, because they are extremely good in terms of grasping new technology advancements as well when Saturn comes to the second house. And the chances of this gets even further if Saturn somehow gets related to Rahu over here. Saturn in the second house, despite being a malefic, will never prevent you from accumulating a lot of materialistic abundance eventually in life. But the timing at which all of this is accumulated, by that time you yourself would be completely detached away from all these materialistic desires. So it is here to serve like a protector from you from becoming spoiled like your own family. Another important thing that you need to recognize when you are having Saturn in the second house, stop giving the remote control of happiness, of your own true satisfaction to your father's side of family. Stop sacrificing for them just in the name of delusional love. Stop taking that higher moral burden that you always need to be the provider. Sometimes, when you take a stand for yourself, the people around you who actually love you will accommodate you. And you should stop this people pleasing altogether. And that is what you eventually actually translate into becoming into life. Because, as I said, Saturn will never do injustice to the house it is being placed in. So if you ever try to do injustice to yourself, to your family, by actually pretending to love them, by taking that role of fulfilling their responsibilities and fulfilling their needs all the time, instead of teaching them the actual value of satisfaction and money, in that case, you will yourself circumstantially start drifting away from your family. And this has happened to a lot of mature charts also that I have seen with Saturn in the second house. So always keep in mind that you cannot afford to introduce emotional biases regarding your father's side of the family and even your immediate family to a certain extent. Always keep a logic boundary in check. Always question yourself that whether the other person deserves the sacrifice that you are about to make. And the moment you go towards that direction, you will see a lot of happiness and a lot of abundance. And definitely, Saturn will never do injustice to your money making and speculation opportunities when it comes to the second house, though you will be slightly pessimistic about it. As later life turns on, right, you become a person who craftily dives away themselves from all the attention. So even if something good happens to you, chances are you would white lie to the other person, playing the victim that no, I think something problematic still has existed with me. And this is something that you eventually transpire to become. Why? Because you don't want people to recognize for your due results. You rather want people to recognize for the entire process and the journey which you have underwent in order to manifest that result. And that is why you try to divert yourself away from all the attention by white lying on their face and still considering yourself to be a pessimistic person who is grounded and more realistic about their finances.